perceive the sounds of the preaching of the Dharma, are seized by horror in regard to the sense pleasures and find happiness of body and mind. c. As for the gods of the form realm, the ones who are enjoying the happiness of the dhyanas, as soon as they come in contact with the Buddha's rays and perceive the sounds of the preaching of the Dharma, they are seized with disgust for the taste of the dhyanas and go to the Buddha. 4. This goes on while the rays have gone to the 10 directions and have illuminated the 6 destinies everywhere. Having thus done the work of the Buddha, they return to the Buddha, make 7 circuits around his body and are reabsorbed into him. A. If the Buddha predicts a birth among the damned, the rays re-enter him by the soles of his feet. B. If the Buddha predicts a birth among the animals, the rays re-enter through his heel. C. If the Buddha predicts a birth among the pretas, the rays re-enter through his big toe. D. If the Buddha predicts a birth among humans, the rays re-enter by his navel. E. If the Buddha predicts a birth among the gods, the rays re-enter by his chest. F. If the Buddha announces the bodhi of the sravakas, the rays re-enter by his mouth. G. If the Buddha announces the bodhi of the pratyeka Buddhas, the rays re-enter by the tuft of white hairs between his eyebrows. H. If the Buddha announces the sambodhi of the Buddhas, the rays re-enter by his cranial protuberance. 5. When the Buddha makes a prediction, he first manifests these signs, then his disciples, Ananda, etc., question him as to their meaning. 4. Gatha. All the Kai verses, if they are composed of 6, 3 or 5 metric feet or an undetermined number of metric feet, are called geya and also kie-to. Gatha, stanza. The 5. Udana. 1. The yeou-to-na exclamations are called yeou-fa. When the Buddha needed to speak and nobody was questioning him, he elicited a question by a short exclamation. Udanasutra. Thus the Buddha was at sravasti, at the visakhaprasada, and was walking in the shade. Suddenly he uttered this exclamation: "That there is no me, that there is no mine, how wonderful!" Then a certain bhiksu, joining his palms together, said to the Buddha, "Bhagavat, that there is no me, that there is no mine, why is that a good thing?" The Buddha answered the bhiksu, "The worldly person who has not obtained the bodhi without impurities and whose mind is covered with doubts feels great fear in regard to non-self and non-mine. But if the Buddha or a disciple of the Buddha teaches him the holy Dharma, then he rejoices and obeys because, no longer having fear, there is no problem." This sutra is told in full in the Samyukta 2. Furthermore, as is said in the Prajnaparamita Parivarta, the Devaputras applauded Subhuti on one occasion, exclaiming, "Good! Very good! Very rare is the Blessed One! Exceptionally rare is the appearance of the Blessed One!" That also is called Udana. 3. Furthermore, after the parinirvana of the Buddha, his disciples gathered and copied yokai summary verses. Verses about impermanence made up the chapter on impermanence, and so on up to the verses on the Brahmana, which made up the chapter on the Brahmana. That also is called Udana. 4. The collections of wonderful things are also called Udana. Texts of this kind show the characteristics of the Udanas. 6. Nidana. 1. The Nidanas set out the circumstances that are at the origin of the Buddha's teachings. Under what circumstances did the Buddha say a certain thing? In the Sutras, it is because a man asked him that he said a certain thing. In the Vinaya, it is because a man committed a certain wrongdoing that he promulgated a certain rule. 2. The facts of dependent origination set forth by the Buddha are also called Nidana. 7. Avadana. The Avadanas stories are amusing little tales such as there are among people in the world. For example, in the Madhyagama, the Changa-poto-na; in the Durgagama, the Ta-poto-na; in the Vinaya, the yeou-poto-na and the yeou-cha-poto-na. In the 250 rules, the yeou-poto-na in one book and the Posa-poto-na in one book. There are innumerable Avadanas of this kind. 8. Ituktaka. The sutras called Ju-che-yu, thus has it been said, are of 2 kinds. 1. The first kind are those sutras having as their concluding phrase, What I first promised to say has been said. 2. The second kind is that of the sutras called yeou-to-na. 1. Ativartaka. Thus did it happen, a type of sutra also existing outside of the Tripitaka in the Mahayana Sutras. Some people call them Motakya. 1. Vartaka. Event. This name, Vartaka, is that of texts extracted from the Tripitaka in the Mahayana Sutras. And what is it then? It is what the Buddha said. Example of Ativartaka. When King Singfan Udana forced some of his subjects to go forth from home and become disciples of the Buddha. The latter chose 500 of them capable of fulfilling this function and of attaining bodhi and led them to sravasti. Why? These young men had not yet renounced desire, and if they had remained near their relatives and their village, it was to be feared that they would violate the precepts. This is why the Buddha took them to sravasti and told Sariputra and Maudgalyayana to discipline them. During the first and last watches of the night, these people endeavored not to sleep, and thanks to their diligence and exertion, they attained bodhi. When they had attained bodhi, the Buddha took them back to their native country. It is a rule among all the Buddhas to return to their native land. Then the Buddha, accompanied by a great crowd of devas, went to Kapilavastu, in the hermit's forest, which is located 500 li from Kapilavastu. It is the pleasure garden of the Sakyas. The Sakya bhiksus who, from their stay in sravasti, tried not to sleep during the first and third watches of the night, found the night long, and now, coming out of the hermit's forest in order to go to the city to beg alms, they took into account the distances they had to travel. At the moment when the Buddha read their minds, a lion came to bow at the feet of the Buddha and sat down at one side. For these 3 reasons, the Buddha spoke the following stanza. For the person who stays awake, the night is long. For the person who is tired, the league is long. For the fool who misunderstands Samura, the holy dharma is long. The Buddha said to the bhiksus, before you went forth from the world, your mind was lazy and you slept a lot. This is why you did not perceive the length of the night. Now that you are vigorously seeking bodhi, during the first and third watches of the night, you are reducing your sleep. This is why you find the night very long. Previously, it was in a chariot that you rode in the forests of Kapilavastu and you did not notice the distances. Now that you are in monk's robes with begging bowl in hand, your fatigue is extreme and you take into account the length of the path. Finally, this lion here, at the time of the Buddha Vipassayan, was a Brahmana teacher. Having heard that the Buddha was preaching the Dharma, he went to the Buddha, but at that moment the great assembly who were listening to the Dharma were silent. At once the Brahmana had a wicked thought and uttered this harmful speech. How are these shaven-headed people different from animals? They are nothing but idiots who don't know how to talk. As a result of this harmful action of speech, for 91 kalpas from the Buddha Vipassayan until now, this Brahmana has always fallen into animal rebirths. But at this very moment he obtains bodhi. By his foolishness, he has gone through a very long samsara. However, today in the presence of the Buddha, his mind has been purified and he will obtain deliverance. Sutras of this kind are called extracts and reasons. From where are they extracted? They are called extracts because they are taken from the Tripitaka in the Mahayana Sutras. Why?